Welcome everybody to Red G Fox, and today we are getting right into episode breakdown. You know, we just started a new game show. Go check that out. I'm going to have another one coming out this week, and each time it's going to be on different topics. So I really hope you participate in that, and we are going to do a live one with actual gift card giveaways and prizes, different things throughout time. So please stay tuned for more stuff, and there'll be even more things as this channel continues to find out anything we can that's enjoyable and that has interest in Sanford and Son. So today in the episode breakdown, this is a good one. This is one that, like we've talked about in the past, this is not bottom 30 by any means of a stretch, but it is one I don't always go to, and I think I'm going to now because it's so funny. And that is Sanford and Son and Sister Make 3. In this one, in a real brief summary, and I'm going to change it up. We're going to try something different because you don't want the show to ever get stale, and I'm going to actually start leading in scenes with clips and all sorts of, like you just saw at the beginning.
That light fix, you know, because we're going to get stopped tonight. We're going to get that light fixed. Oh, yes. One of our headlights is out.
Well, you better get it fixed, because they death on a nigga with one light. If you got one light, you better be on a motorcycle. I'm not kidding. You go down there in traffic court, and you sit around there, you see so many brothers and sisters. You think you're the NAACP, right?
So in this one, it's basically an old flame of Fred returns, Juanita. Every time I hear Juanita, though, I think of Juanita from Andy Griffith. You know, the girl that we never got to meet, but Barney Fife always hooked up with on the side. And so Juanita comes into town, and she's got her daughter with her, and she's excited to hook up with Fred again. Fred's pumped up, and in that, as they're going and they're finding out, it turns out that she tells Fred that Alice is his daughter. And now Fred's like, what? Because Alice and Lamont had instant chemistry. They're having a great time together. And he's like, yeah, Lamont's going out with his sister. He's kissing his sister. We can't have that. You know, he's like, over 100
million women in this country, and the dummy had to fall in love with his sister.
100 million women in the world, and the dummy has to fall in love with his sister. So it has some great lines in it, parts that I even forgot about, and that's basically the summary of it. Is that, hey, old flame might have Fred just find out he might be a dad for a second time, but that's it. Well, we'll do the breakdown through it. Let's get, as we said, I'm going to start changing the show up where we lead with fun facts, we lead with familiar faces, just because that's the core that maybe a lot of diehard fans miss some of those things. And we got some good fun facts, so please don't tune away. Let's check it out right now. Fun facts. Fred sings, jelly, jelly, jelly stains on my mind, as he's coming out, and Lamont hears him, and he even says, who are you, Billy Eckstein? It's ironic that he says that, because any real fan knows that season 4 in the stand-ins with bow legs, and he's walking. He loves the way Fred walks. When he's there, Billy Eckstein's actually in it, and he's singing, jelly, jelly, jelly stains on my mind. And he does such a good job, and the guy's like, get out of here, don't quit your day job. Basically, the guy sucks. I can't wait to talk about that episode one day. But yeah, Fred comes out singing it, so it's so ironic that Lamont says, hey, what are you, Billy Eckstein? And he actually will be on the show one day singing this exact same song. Next familiar faces, I'm not hurt. Why do I keep saying that? Next fun fact. This is the second ever episode written by Richard Pryor. He co-wrote it with someone else. This is the second one ever that Richard Pryor was a part of in Sanford and Son. Very good friends of Red Fox. And we know throughout show history, Red Fox loves getting his friends involved. Anything you can to get them credit for a writer, director, producer, and more cash. That's a guy looking out for his buddies. That's the kind of guy you want to be friends with. Also, the next one. Alice, who actually plays the daughter of Juanita in this, is actually only 7 years younger. We've seen this in another episode with The Return of the Barracuda, where Lamont brings the date. That girl was, I think, around 7 years younger than Donna, but it was portrayed as being young enough to be her daughter. In this one, Juanita comes on, has her daughter. In real life, the actress Emily, who plays, I believe it's Emily, but anyway, Alice, she is actually only 7 years younger than her. So they do a great job with the makeup, but when you actually look at it in detail, you're like, you know what, they don't look that far apart in age. And even my youngest son, who was watching it with me, he said she doesn't look that much younger than her. You know, the lady who played Juanita looked young, even with the fake gray hair. So most people can catch on to that, but that is still pretty interesting that they did that. Another fun fact, Red Fox, Emily, who played Alice in this, and Damon Wilson all appeared together, not at the same time as one scene as friends, but they all appeared in the movie Cotton Comes to Harlem. Yeah, I didn't know that, but Emily's in it. They all have side parts. Damon is actually like a person in the crowd, one of the extras in it, but they're all in that movie. So that's an amazing fun fact that you see them all reunite. I wonder, did they have any conversation about that while they're on the set between takes? But that's pretty cool that they were all in Cotton Comes to Harlem. Fred wears and he gets a smoking jacket in this, and he looks amazing. I love it. And I think it's the same one they probably used. Remember in the other one where he has an emotional breakdown and talks to Elizabeth, emotionally about marrying Donna. But it's the same smoking jacket, I want to say. They have several episodes. Another good one with the smoking jacket is when he's wearing it half, and Crazy Alice comes to see it because he's got the handcuff to Esther, and she's like, "Why are you wearing half a smoking jacket?" He's like, "Oh, I'm trying to quit." I'm trying to quit. Oh, that's a great one. But in this, he walks out and he's like, "Man, I look good enough to be on the cover of Ebony, the magazine." And he actually is in it 2 times, in 72 and 74. He both appeared on the cover of Ebony magazine. Just a little fun fact that you might want to hear of that. Hey, Fred Sanford, you did look good enough. In fact, you look so good you did it twice. So now let's get to familiar faces. With the familiar faces, we got Janae Dubais. I don't know how she actually pronounced it. It's Janae Dubais. French, it's Dubois, Janae Dubois, but I want to say it's Janae Dubois because, hey, it's America. She played Juanita. She also did, in 43 episodes, the PJs. She did the voice, I want to say, of one of the teachers, but she did several other voiceover work later in her career, and she just sadly passed away in 2020. So she was around for a long time. I think she was 87. But she also appeared in Charlie's Angels, the movie, one of the movies. One of my favorite shows, me and my wife, Cold Case. The Warner Brothers, she was 10 episodes. I want to say she was someone's grandmother in that. Or not the Warner, the Wayans Brothers. The Wayans Brothers. And she was in ER and in Home Improvement. So she did a whole bunch of range shows that were all the way from the 70s, 80s, 90s, that we even in the 2000s when she was doing voiceover work. So excellent career for Janae Dubois is what we want to call it. Next is Emily Young, who played Alice. She did a lot of things, but nothing too outside. Cold Case, again, just like we mentioned how Jeanette was in that. Cold Case, The Abyss, that's a big time movie. 9 Months, another big time movie. So she was in some big movies, and she was in one of my all-time favorite shows, and I remember her, MacGyver. Yeah, she was in MacGyver. That I did recognize her from. That's the only I remember her from because I didn't see The Abyss and some of those other movies. Frasier, and Criminal Minds, another favorite show of my family's here. So Criminal Minds. So that is it with familiar faces. Thank you. Now let's get to the part where we break down the episode. In the breakdown, this is how it is. We're going to go through it real quick. Fred getting ready. He's got flowers. Lamont comes home and he's like, "What's going on? Why are there flowers? Why are you smelling so good?" And he's like, "Hey, I got an old flame coming over." He said, "We were so close and it was so passionate. She could have even been your mother." It's right before he met Elizabeth. And he starts talking about what a great time they were. She was a dance partner. She's got a little bit of Spanish in her, dancing with the rose. And of course, Lamont's like, "Oh, it must have been tough for her to eat." He's like, "No, don't be stupid, silly, when they're dancing." And we even get to see Fred breaking out some of his dance moves, performing for him and telling him how he was throwing her around and he tossed her through the legs and over the head and over the band. And they won a prize to go see, I think it was a movie or a show. And he ended up taking Elizabeth. And Lamont's like, "Well, why didn't you take Juanita?" He says, "Because she was in traction." So she couldn't go. So it's funny where it's like, hey, it's almost like you do get a little backstory to where right before he met Elizabeth, and I wonder if he knew her at the time, but he did get to take her on a date because of what he did with Juanita. So that's pretty cool. So he's like that, and Lamont's like, "All right, I got to take off for a date." Then there's a knock at the door. Lamont couldn't get in the bath right away because he wanted to take a bath real quick, but Fred had used all the hot water, so he had to wait to hear the story. So she comes in and he meets her, and as soon as she comes in, man, they dance. They do their dance, his old dance partner, and he even has roses around, and he takes it and sticks it in her mouth. And it's a great little scene, as we've already shown probably. And they do the great dance scene, and then they introduce to each other. And Lamont, you can see the whole time, it's just, he's big-eyed, he's frozen, he is stuck on a very beautiful lady named Alice, who is Juanita's daughter. And it didn't take no time to tell that he got hit by that thunderbolt, as we'll cover later. And he's so zoned out on her, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Alice." He's all, "Hey." And he does it, and she's like, "Oh, you could call him." Then she talks to Fred. Fred's like, "Hey, you can call me Fred." And Juanita's like, oh, Lamont, you can call me Juanita. And he's like, what? He's like listening to anything going on. We all can relate to that, male, female. We know that moment. I don't think too many of us want to show it. Lamont really does a good job of showing that he's like infatuated with her. So they're talking about their old thing. They sit down and you're going to get acquainted. And then Lamont has to go on his date. And he's like, no, I don't have no date. He's like, no, it was really just me going out with my buddies, my friend's date. And she's smiling. She probably knew. He's trying to play it off to stay. And they got to get a light fixed. And Fred's all, he said, you better get that headlight fixed because they're death on a you-know-what if you don't get your light fixed.
That light fix, because we're going to get stopped tonight. We're going to get that light fixed. Oh, yes. One of our headlights is out.
Well, you better get it fixed, because they death on a nigga with one light.
Talking about the police. He said, if you got one headlight, you better be a motorcycle. He said, you can go down right now to City Hall, and you'll see so many brothers and sisters in there. It looks like a gathering at NAACP. It's so funny. And he nails it. He's 100% right. Man, they will go after you. Fred knows. At my house, things haven't changed. But he calls it like it is. And Lamont's like, yeah, we can go. Let's go fix it right now. Let's go take care of it. And she's like, good, we can get reacquainted. And then Lamont's like, we can get a couple burritos and make a date of it. So they take off. And then him and Juanita go in the kitchen and he's all saying a little bit of the bubbly. And she's like, oh, champagne. He's all, no, Ripple and soda. It's the cheap version. But he gets the Ripple. Man, I wish I could try Ripple. I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol for personal reasons, from my upbringing with my dad, who used to really be into it. So I don't. But it's funny to see. I wish I could have tried Ripple because I've heard about it, what it tastes like when I read up on it, and they don't make it anymore. So every time I see it, I'm like, man, I wish I could have tried some. But he does the Ripple and the soda. They mix it. They're having a great time. They're drinking, talking, and they're doing the hold tight, hold tight. They're doing the song that we hear later on. Who sings it? Is it on the Gong Show where Fred sings it? Or is it with, I think it's with Bowlegs. They sing it on the stand-ins. How ironic, and that's a fun fact I didn't even think about. If that is the one, comment below. If they sing this in the stand-ins, remember also in the stand-ins is Jelly, Jelly, so that means they use two songs from this one that they use in the stand-ins. That's pretty cool. And I wonder if it was on accident, not the Jelly, Jelly, but the other part. But they both sang it together, talking about old times. And then Fred, perfect timing, he's drinking the Ripple, and she's like, oh, you don't know? They're talking about how both of them are single. They're both their spouses have passed away, and then she's like, oh, it wasn't really his daughter. He died. No, and it wasn't. Alice wasn't his daughter. And Fred's like, oh, whose daughter is she? And she's all, you don't know? And we can see the audience, the face. Fred's drinking it, and he's all, and he's thinking, she's all, Alice is our daughter. He spits the Ripple everywhere, as he should be. And he gets up, and I love this scene when he's like, what? He's like, how is she my, and then she's like, rubbing inside his shirt right there, and she's like, tutti frutti, tutti frutti. You can see Fred's face. I've already shown a clip where I'm going to right now. But you can see Fred's face. It's so funny, his reaction to it, where he's like thinking about it. It takes him a bit to remember, and then he's oh yeah, he likes it, and he's like yeah, I remember. But and then it hits him again like a thunderbolt. He's like, wait a minute, if Alice is my daughter, then Lamont's out with his sister, and he's like, oh, Elizabeth, this is a big one, and he's gonna have another heart attack, as he should. So it ends with that, and you're like, just thinking, why, if this is real, right? If it's not, if it's just a scam, why would you say it's his daughter, knowing that now, especially when Lamont's taking her out, you think she would not want to do that. That could ruin a chance. And that's what it turns out to be in this episode, is that she's setting Fred up. She wants to say, hey, this is your daughter. We're old flames. Let's get together. Then they'll get married, and they got him trapped. Fred will help take care of Alice. Fred will help take care of Juanita. It's a perfect setup, right? And they're both old age, so they can end their life together happily and secure, comfort. She didn't think Lamont would fall for her, but she's got to see that's going to happen. I think she still could have reeled in Fred without saying that part, but it ends up backfiring. So he sees Lamont, and Lamont's so excited. He's like, hey, son, you didn't come in last night. And he's saying, this is it, man. This is it, Dad. I got hit like in the movie The Godfather. He said, remember when he sees it and it's the thunderbolt? And Fred's like, you can't have no thunderbolt. See, and Lamont's like, why? He's like, because in that movie, they're Italians. They're only Italians can get hit with the thunderbolt. He said, no, man, it's just another way of saying love at first sight. And he is in love, and she is a very attractive woman, and her character is portrayed very kind up to this point until they start having bad blood. But you could see why Fred's concerned, and Fred's like, no. He said, you can't marry her, because then you have Juanita would be your stepmother, your mother-in-law, and you know all these things. And then he's like, and then she'd be my daughter, stepdaughter, or my daughter-in-law. He said, that's too much damn family in one house. And he's right. You can't have a situation like that. That is totally awkward and will mess everything up. But Lamont's like, hey, you ain't married yet. I'm gonna propose. I'm gonna ask. I know how I feel. Nothing's gonna stop me. And then that's when Fred's like,
100 million women in this country, and the dummy had to fall in love with his sister.
it's a foursome. I actually think if she didn't bring this up, fictional show, if we're doing hypothetical, if she didn't bring this up, they might have been able to do double dating, and it would have worked out great. I don't think Fred would have cared. But no, they blew it. She blew it by that. But she comes, and she looks nice, and Lamont's sneaking kisses. He's like, how about a little sugar? And my stepdad used to always say that. How about a little sugar to his daughter? And kisses him. Lamont's like, he's got the shivers and he likes it. So he's pumped, he's excited. And then Fred comes down, and we hear in the kitchen the two women talking, and she's like, all you got to do is hook them and reel them in. And she's saying, we got it. Pretty soon you'll be calling him Papa Sanford, and we got the home. Their scheme is working great. She just messed up by that one part. So Fred comes down, and he's got that cool, I think he looks great in the smoking jacket. And he's like, oh, loving it. And Lamont's like, what is that you got on? And later on, remember, he has one, and he tells Grady, it's my smoking jacket and ascot. He said, oh, look at you in your ass. But anyways, back to the main story here. He's like, what do you got on? He's like, it's a smoking jacket. You got something for me to smoke? She comes in, and she's like, oh, and that's when Fred, they all love it, and they're hanging out. And Fred's like, oh, man, I look good enough to be on Ebony magazine. So they go to sit, and he's like, I want to sit here. I don't like to have my back to, because she wanted to arrange him. And Fred's like, no, I want Alice next to me. I don't, he's trying to keep it to where he doesn't have Lamont and Alice away from him. And then she's like, no, let's sit here. And he's like, no, it's my house. I'm going to sit here. I don't want my back to the door like Jesse James, I think it was Jesse James he said, yeah, or was it Dillinger? Either way, he's like, I don't want my back to the door. And a lot of people feel like that, especially in their own home. So I don't blame Fred. And she's like, you're the man. It's your home. It's your castle. Sit down. He's like, that's right. So they start to seem like it's going to be good. Lamont's got her arm around her, and she's going with Fred. Fred throws his arm off. They go in there, and that's when they're talking, and he's like, no, look, he is legit falling for his sister. And she's like, don't worry about it. That's just a brotherly kiss. He said, no brother and sister kiss like that, and he's right. And he's like, we can't have this. We got to stop it. She's like, don't worry about it. And they go out there, and she's trying to change the subject. Now they're sitting down eating, and that's when it starts getting out of control, where it gets to the point where they're having fun, good conversation, and Fred starts saying, oh, you can't just live, because she can't cook like Juanita can, Alice can't. And Lamont's like, I don't care, we'll live on love. He said, yeah, well, that marriage ain't gonna last, right? Because you can't only have so many TV dinners and love before you go nuts. And she's like, we'll talk about it later. And he's like, don't you tell me what to do. And he puts his hand at her, and she's like, don't you raise, and that's when it's like, that's it, it's over. Fred goes nuts on her, and he's pointing, and she's pointing, and he's like, that's it, your big temper. And she says, oh, he goes blowing up the handle, big old big mouth, or no temper. And he's like, you and your big mouth. And it's a big fight. They get up, then the kids get up, and she's like, are you gonna let your dad talk like that to my mom? He's like, are you gonna let your mom talk like that to my dad? Now they're fighting. They take off. Fred goes out there, and he takes it off, and he's all, I don't need no faggoty jacket, and he throws it's so funny.
And stay out of this dump and let it here. Take this faggoty jacket with you.
And then he's like, Alice gets the temper from you and gets my good looks. And that's when she says, are you a fool? You didn't recognize it? She looks more like her dead father, with him dead, than she did you alive, and it ain't it. And he's like, well, what the hell? Why'd you say it? So she leaves, and he comes in, and this is a great scene. It's a great ending to where Fred and Lamont are chatting. They're both mocking him, and they finally come up with nicknames where it's Fizzle and Drizzle. But to see the exchange between them where they're cracking up after a tough evening, a tough moment, that's what it always comes down to. It's always father and son, and it's always great time together. No women are going to come between them, and it's just a great ending. And that's it. That's the episode. I left a lot of jokes on the floor. Like I said, I'm trying to cut the time down on this the show. We got 10 minutes on fun facts, familiar faces, and summary, and about 10 minutes on this. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Please give a like. Please subscribe to our channel. Go look out the game show and look for more game shows coming up and more trivia. And go look at our previous one, our Christmas song, 12 Days of Fred Sanford, 12 Gifts from Fred Sanford. I promise you will not be disappointed. Watch it all the way through. We got some great ones as you go through the 12 days, the 12 gifts from Fred. Have a great day. We will see you again. I plan on having 2 more episodes this week, so stay tuned. Have a great week. Peace.